This morning, I asked that the 127th anniversary be a working visit for the Chief of Staff and myself. We heard the initiatives earlier that the PMA is undertaking to keep in step with the needs of the armed forces of the Philippines and the defense establishment, and with due regard to advances in technology and other developments in the geopolitical landscape. This work started when we formulated the enhanced defense posture, deterrent posture rather, of the defense establishment, principally the armed forces of the Philippines, and it resulted in the comprehensive archipelagic defense concept. We sat down with then Superintendent Rowan Tolentino to discuss the way forward on how we can produce deployable, ready, and competent officers in the respective branches of service that the graduates will be joining in the future. And in so doing, the first phase was the enhanced curriculum that Vice Admiral Valencia expounded on earlier. We have a pool of talent that is undeniably capable of absorbing much. What we need to provide is the environment and the capacity to shape this pool of talent into future officers, future leaders, and future decision makers of the armed forces of the Philippines, or perhaps even in other branches of the government or the private sector, depending on the career path. And in so doing, we must realize also that they are not the sole source of officers that we need for the armed forces. And in fact, the challenge is how to mitigate the gap between generalists who graduate here with the specialized skills that is needed for a 21st or 22nd century armed force of the Philippines. We have been busy with the Chief of Staff creating the institutions which will absorb specialized career tracks which we need to manage complex systems, to enter into asymmetric situations, to be able to analyze and predict phenomena, and to digest variables which may think are chaotic, but we need to manage and to deal with. And most importantly, we need to create a future-ready force that will deter, and I stress deter, any attempt to disrupt the peace and prosperity of the Republic of the Philippines and any of its citizens. And in this, we will need multidisciplinary skills, networking with a lot of organizations without forgetting the operationally secure requirements that we are operating in. And in so doing, I have instructed the Chief of Staff and Admiral Valencia to enter into the arrangements with the Philippine Coast Guard to accept a limited number of cadets that will, upon graduation, be commissioned as officers in the Philippine Coast Guard, given the fact that we operate very closely and jointly with them, and therefore interoperability is essential, and knowledge of each other's skills is a sine qua non for seamless operations in the maritime domain. Lastly, we have also to leverage the goodwill that our country has in partnerships with not only service or military academies of like-minded and partner nations, but also educational institutions which can build upon the basic education that you receive here and the basic grounding you receive here in order for you to specialize as you proceed on your military journey. The traditional career paths that we know may not be valid anymore today. Increasing specialization is the name of the game, and specialization is a continuing slope, upward slope, because new situations constantly evolve and the learning curve is always steep, particularly for an armed force that must be ready to act if deterrence fails. You have to be ahead of the curve, and we must mitigate the gaps as we see them, which is why right after this gathering, we will immediately adjourn to conference with the staff, the leadership and the staff of the PMA, with the PMA staff as camp administrators of Fort del Pilar, with the OCD for proper land use of the real estate assets of Fort del Pilar, for enhancements of the infrastructure that we see in Fort del Pilar, of which I also enjoin the PMAAAI to join hands in purposeful enhancements to the facilities that will be constructed here, in order for us to have sustainable, maintainable, and functional infrastructure within Fort del Pilar. So the challenge for us in the higher leadership of the AFP and the Defense Department is to pave the way for opportunities, career tracks, and well-being for each and every member of the Cadet Corps and each and every member of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and each and every veteran, retiree, especially those who have served with distinction and have left their loved ones with no one to care for them. That is the President's instructions. Those are the President's marching orders to myself, to the Chief of Staff, and to the PMA leadership. The problem is we have a constraint of time, and so that I am not misinterpreted, I do not mean the inevitability of conflict, but time in a race to shape our armed forces into a future-ready armed force. The race is fast, the race is competitive, the race is expensive, and we have to join that race if we are to remain relevant and dignified as a sovereign republic of the Philippines. There are no ifs and no buts about that. A strong defense establishment, a strong armed force, a ready armed force, and readiness is not a constant. Readiness is a variable. And the only constant in readiness is its continuous evolution. What is variable is the pace of evolution on how fast or how slow you go about it. In those situations, in this situation, we totally support the initiatives of Philippine Military Academy. We count on each and every member of the PMA family, including our cadet corps, to rise up to the challenge, to not be complacent, to strive for higher excellence, because you will be competing not only with your domestic peers, we will pit you against your foreign counterparts. And we are relying on you to raise the flag as a mark of Filipino pride and distinction, not only in this region, because our allies are not only in this region, but throughout the world, so that the Filipino brand name of military professionalism, leadership, competence, and excellence is marked on each and every one in the world, and that is the best deterrent against any oppressor that wants to take advantage of this country. With that, I thank you very much for this opportunity. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.